and welcome to my channel. I wanted to do a book reading update to basically tell you which books I've read since I believe it was mid-October to now mid-November. So the reason it's not an October wrap-up or November wrap-up is because I was on vacation in France. Then I got COVID for a week and a half. So my readings, France, I read nothing. I read 40 pages of my Japanese book and that was it. During COVID, all I managed to do was to finish that Japanese book. So I don't really have that much to present. So I'd rather just give you this book reading update now, and then my next update will be my end of the year wrap up. So not much to report. And if you're thinking to yourself, but you know, you just made this huge video about your end of the year TBR and all the things you like to read. And yes, that is very true. I did do that. But there's a reason that video is called My Attempt at the end of the TBR video. And there's a reason I started off that video saying this probably won't happen because I'm not good at TBRs. Just saying. So any case, the first book I have to present to you is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which was in that end of the year TBR video, and I did read this and I did absolutely love it. Rebecca is the story of this woman who marries this man after only knowing him for basically a week, and coming back to England into his large manor, where she is haunted by basically his ex-wife, and the expectations that are on her compared to this ex-wife Rebecca. So she's very much trying to figure out what her place is in this man's life, in the manor's life, and within the servants. Just trying to figure things out, like is she here to replace Rebecca? Is she here to be, you know, Rebecca 2.0, or does he actually want something entirely different? So this is something that really plagues our young protagonist, and this book was absolutely excellent. Now, I personally do prefer the Cousin Rachel, but I have a theory that the book that you read first when you read Daphne du Maurier is your favorite. So if you read Rebecca first, you'll probably think Rebecca's your favorite. If you read My Cousin Rachel first, you probably think My Cousin Rachel is your favorite. So that's my theory. But Rebecca was absolutely, it was excellent. It was intriguing, and it really really pulled me into its prose. The only reason I think I liked My Cousin Rachel better was because I think My Cousin Rachel built this tension that was so much more, you know, there had so much more risk to it, so much of a feeling of, you know, this is life or death, depending on decisions that are made, or depending on what are the actual what's actually happening. While Rebecca felt more like, okay, it can only really go in this direction, and we're gonna go there. We're gonna take we're gonna go in that direction, and we're gonna take that path, and it's gonna be incredibly interesting. But because we already know where it's gonna go, there's not that. The tension is a very different kind of tension. It's not a tension of questioning what's gonna happen. It's just a tension of like, how are we going to get there, basically. So it's a very different type of tension. And again, I prefer My Cousin Rachel just because I felt the stakes were higher in My Cousin Rachel. While Rebecca, because the first chapter basically tells you how the book ends, you're basically just trying to figure out how we're going to get there. So still absolutely love this. This was fantastic. I really couldn't stop turning the pages. I mean, Rebecca du Maurier's writing is sublime. I mean, this woman knows how to write. Absolutely sublime, and just certainly very, very page turning. So definitely love this. Then I had a very long train ride to get through, so I randomly picked up this book to put in my bag. And it was great because I ended up reading it in just one day. And that is Dans la barque de dieu by Ekuni Kaori. This is translated into French as the title In God's Boat. And basically the idea of this book is you have this mother with her young child, and they keep moving from town to town because the mother has this thing where she doesn't want to settle down. She doesn't want to establish any roots anywhere. And when her daughter sort of approaches her about that, the mother states, well, we are in God's boat, basically. So, God is taking us where he wants to go. And this is not like a Christian God. That's not what I mean by God. It's just like the fate is leading us where it wants us to go, basically. So it's not a religious God, and that's what I want to say about that. But yeah, this was just a lovely little book. It's not the most life-changing book. It's not something that I will scream and say absolutely you must read it. But it is a very well done book, and it's a very delightful book, and I actually quite liked the ending. So again, basically, like the whole concept is the fact that this mother had this child from a man, and he couldn't stay, but he promised her, I will be back, I will come find you. And so the whole reason this mother doesn't want to attach herself to any place is because, one, she believes that he will find her, and so it doesn't matter where she is, he will find her. And two, she believes that if she were to settle down, she risks losing that connection with this man. She risks basically maybe falling for someone else, and she doesn't want to risk that because she really does truly believe in this man, and she believes in the connection they had. So the thing that's interesting about this book is that it really makes you question that relationship. How much of it is just her imaginings and her creating this like ideal fantasy about this really brief relationship she had, or how much of it is actual real emotions. So you go through alternating perspectives between the mother and the daughter, where the daughter is, as she gets older, because she starts off in elementary school and we end up with her, in high school. So basically we end up with this daughter that as she gets older, she really starts to question her mother, and like, is my mother grasping at something that just never even existed to begin with? So we have these dueling perspectives of this mother who just will not lose faith versus a daughter who has lost faith in this whole idea of this pure love that her mom has gone through. So yeah, it was just a nice, delightful read. You go through all the really towns they go to. You see all the ways that the mother could have attached herself to a certain place, but refuses to let herself get attached. And it's frustrating, and it's hard to understand, but at the same time, it's just, there's you kind of want to believe in this sort of idea of a true love, even though there's so much evidence in the book that it was just like a summer fling, basically. So very interesting book. I actually, again, quite like the ending. I like where it went. I'm not going to tell you whether it's one way or the other, because if you're going to read this book, you should discover it for yourself, but I quite enjoyed it. So great little read to read in one day. It's not, gonna shake my world, but it was definitely very, very enjoyable. Then I finished, this was the book that I read 40 pages in France, and then I finished it while I had COVID. This was the October pick for my Japanese book club, and it's called 玩具修理者 by Kobayashi something. Kobayashi Yasumi. And this is a little horror book. We chose it to fit the season of October, Halloween, etc., etc., etc. And it has two stories. The first story is a short 40-page story where this is the title for the main story, and that is the toy toy maker / toy repairer. And this story for me was so because it was so obvious where it was going and what it was and what the story was. Like in the first page, you pretty much, even just from the title, you pretty much know what's gonna happen. You know, the toy maker who can make anything, and well, not toy maker, toy repairman, the toy maker who can repair anything, basically. You know where that's going, right? I mean, you can kind of figure it out. Just the toy repairman, he can fix anything. Oh, what can he not fix? Well, it turns out he can't not fix not everything. A lot of double negatives. I'm not sure if they worked out, but he can basically fix anything. So you know where this is going. So there's really no. So for me, because you know that from the very first page, it was very hard to create tension. It was hard to create atmosphere, I felt, because it was just too obvious. So for me, the very first story, the titular story, kind of just felt like a creative writing assignment where everyone has to write the same thing, and this was just the better written one of all of the others, but pretty much everyone had the same idea. But I mean, still good. It was very well written, but it didn't really, I wasn't engrossed. Now the second story was a lot better. The second story is called, what is it called? Tell me what you're called. Suihou suru otoko. So the drunkard. Where, and this one was very intriguing, and it actually went through quite a lot of themes, quite a lot of topics, where basically this man is in a bar and he's confronted by another man who tells him, you know, we used to be best friends. And so our protagonist is like, well, I don't know you. What do you mean we used to be friends? Like, I should know you if we had indeed once been best friends. And so the man, who we assume just to be a drunkard, you know, just a man rambling, you know, upon drinking alcohol, begins his story to explain to the narrator and us, the reader, what he means by the fact that we used to be best friends, even though you don't remember it. And it turns out they were best friends. So basically it was him, you know, those two, they were very, very good friends. And what happened is they both fell in love with the same woman. And the woman, when she is confronted with both of their love, ends up questionably, but pretty much committing suicide. Allegedly, or as we are made to think, she threw herself in front of a train. When she dies, and her body is, you know, spread into little pieces, and our protagonist allegedly had gathered all of her body parts and was like, I'm going to revive you. I'm going to find a way for you to come back to life. So he makes this mission, and the person telling the story is saying how he was forced into this wild idea of, you know, bringing this woman back to life. So then it becomes a story about time travel, where the drunkard in the bar tells our protagonist, you know, you came up with this idea of time traveling. You came up with this procedure where basically if you were able to alter your mental state, then you would be able to alter your perception of time, which would give you the ability to time travel. And that does indeed happen. But basically, where does this become a horror novel? The idea of the horror novel comes from the fact that time travel is not this ideal situation where you can just go back to a time you want to go to and alter things in a way you want them to be altered, and then everything happens exactly how it's supposed to happen, or as you imagine it to happen. There are consequences beyond your wildest imagination. And so basically it's this man telling the drunkard, this is what you've done to me, and this is what you've done to us, and here is the horror that you have, the horrible life that basically you have put us in. So definitely a much more intriguing story. It definitely had a lot more going for it. You definitely didn't know where it was going to go. What was going to be the outcome? Are they able to revive this woman? What is her ultimate fate? What is their ultimate fate? So yeah, definitely more intriguing, definitely more interesting. Definitely like that one better. Overall, for me, this is a little bit middle ground of a horror, but I think horror is definitely a very subjective genre. It's definitely a genre where I think you might like certain styles of horror over others, and not that I read the genre very much, but out of this author and the author Otsuichi, who I have read quite a bit, I have to say I prefer Otsuichi's version of horror, but this is not to say that this is not just as good. It's just a question of personal preferences, but it's definitely very well written. It's definitely gripping, and the idea of what is the actual horror in the last story was definitely very intriguing, even though I didn't feel emotionally gripped by the idea, right? So I was just like, oh yeah, very intriguing, very nice. While my friend read this and she was just utterly like flabbergasted by the idea. She was definitely like, oh my goodness, that definitely is very horrific. And she was entranced actually by both stories. She gave this like a full 5 stars out of 5. So again, very subjective. Definitely a question, I think, of experience with the genre and your ability to either imagine things yourself or your ability to let the author imagine things for you, basically. So very interesting little book, Wangu Shurisha by Kobayashi Yasumi. So not translated in any language that I'm aware of, but fun. And then just in that time, I read 2 volumes of manga. It's all the time I had. The only thing I was able to read with my time, and that is volumes 2 and 3 of the Under Ninja by Kitazawa Kengo, who wrote the manga I Am a Hero, the zombie manga I Am a Hero that I really liked. This is his ninja story. This is actually surprisingly difficult for me to read. So it definitely slowed me down to read these because this is a type of story I'm not used to reading in Japanese. I don't know the vocabulary for like ninja, underground societies, terrorist organizations, like penetrating compounds and things like that. That's not vocabulary I know, so I definitely have to look a lot of stuff up on the dictionary. So this definitely slowed me down, which prevented me from reading anything else. But I still am intrigued enough by the story to read on, so I definitely will be doing that. So yeah, that's it. That's all I've read in the past month and a half or so. I don't even know. I don't know where I left off last time, to be honest. And right now, I'm currently working on a Japanese book club read to finish off November. I have a feeling that's all I'm going to be able to read in the next 4 days. So, I mean, that is what it is. And then we'll see if I can get through any other books in my TBR pile. Because my attempt at the end of the year TBR was genuine. It really was honest. Like, realistically, I knew it was going to happen, but it still was a genuine idea and a genuine thought. And the books are definitely books that I still do want to read and I do want to get to. So I'm just going to have to choose. I think I have to choose the order in which I read them to see, like, if the motivation, like the excitement of reading can like push me through into reading a lot of books. In any case, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!